Small Steps, Big Changes, Gradual Exposure Techniques for Social Anxiety. Written and published by Ciro Irmici. Feel free to subscribe for more content. Now let's get into the book. Introduction. Understanding Social Anxiety and the Power of Small Steps. Social anxiety can feel like a relentless shadow, always lurking in the background, waiting to make your palms sweaty and your mind race at the worst possible moments. Whether it's the thought of speaking up in a meeting, introducing yourself to someone new, or simply being the center of attention for more than a few seconds, the anxiety feels all too real and, let's be honest, pretty exhausting. You're not alone in this. Millions of people feel the same. But here's the kicker. There's a way to make it better, one small, manageable step at a time. This book is your guide to gradually exposing yourself to the social situations that make your heart beat a little too fast and your brain overanalyze every detail like it's solving a crime scene. But instead of diving headfirst into the deep end of anxiety like some misguided hero, we're going to start with baby steps. Think of it like dipping your toes into the shallow end, no cannonballs required. Why small steps, you ask? Because they work. Science says so, and so do the countless people who found freedom by taking one tiny leap after another. Gradual exposure allows your mind and body to get used to the situations that make you uncomfortable without sending you into full panic mode. It's like training a scared puppy to walk through the neighborhood. You start with the driveway before tackling the busy streets. And no, I'm not calling you a puppy, but the principle is kind of the same, slow, steady, and with plenty of treats along the way. In this book, you'll learn how to identify your anxiety triggers, set achievable goals, and gradually expose yourself to challenging social scenarios. We'll cover everything from making eye contact in conversations. Yes, it's harder than it sounds, to navigating large social events without wanting to teleport to a deserted island. You'll discover practical exercises, funny real-life examples, and a few moments of lighthearted humor to remind you that social anxiety, while serious, doesn't have to be a joy killer. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect at any of this. You're allowed to stumble, laugh at yourself, and try again. This isn't about erasing anxiety completely, it's about learning to live alongside it, like that quirky roommate who always leaves dishes in the sink but pays rent on time. We'll focus on progress, not perfection, and celebrate every little victory along the way. So, grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's take this journey together. One small step at a time, we're going to turn your social fears into manageable challenges. And who knows, by the end of this, you might even look forward to that next party invite. Or at the very least, you won't immediately want to hide under the bed when it arrives. Let's get started, you've got this. Chapter 1. The Science Behind Social Anxiety. Have you ever wondered why your brain seems to throw a party for all the wrong reasons whenever you're in a social situation? And by party, I mean that sweaty, heart-pounding, mind-racing feeling that hits when someone asks you to introduce yourself or, heaven forbid, make small talk. Social anxiety can feel like a complex puzzle where every piece seems designed to make you uncomfortable. But here's the thing, it's not your fault, and more importantly, it's not unchangeable. In this chapter, we'll dig into the nitty-gritty of why social anxiety happens. Understanding the science behind your anxious moments can be like finding the instruction manual to a confusing gadget. It suddenly makes sense and you feel a little less lost. We'll cover why your brain acts like it's facing a lion every time you need to talk to strangers, and why your body seems determined to make social interactions feel like a sprint rather than a stroll. Knowing the why is the first step toward taming the beast, so let's dive in. The biology of anxiety, your brain's overprotective instincts. Imagine your brain as an overzealous bodyguard whose main job is to keep you safe. It's the reason why, back in the day, your ancestors could quickly react to threats like saber-toothed tigers. Fast forward to modern times, and while the tigers are gone, thankfully, your brain still has that same protective mode switched on. Now, instead of fending off wild animals, it's trying to protect you from the perceived danger of social situations, like talking to your boss or making a toast at a wedding. This overprotective reaction is triggered by the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure in your brain that acts as the command center for emotions, especially fear. When you're about to do something socially nerve-wracking, your amygdala hits the panic button, sending out signals that make your heart race, palms sweat, and thoughts scatter like marbles on a tile floor. It's all part of the fight-or-flight response, a survival mechanism that's useful when you're running from danger but less so when you're just trying to order a coffee. The problem is, your brain doesn't always get the memo that social interactions aren't life-threatening. Instead of calmly assessing the situation, it goes full, danger, Will Robinson, mode at the first hint of discomfort. Understanding this is key because it's not that you're weak, overly shy, or incapable. It's just your brain doing its job a little too enthusiastically. Negative thought loops. when your mind becomes a broken record. Next up, we have your thoughts, which are basically the annoying backseat drivers of your social experiences. Imagine your mind as a radio station that only plays hits from Anxiety FM. The tunes go something like this: they're all staring at you, you're going to say something stupid, or the classic, they probably think you're weird. These aren't just harmless thoughts, they're negative loops that feed into your anxiety, making every social situation feel like a disaster waiting to happen. These thoughts are fueled by something called cognitive distortions, fancy words for the tricks your mind plays on you. You might engage in mind reading, where you assume you know what others are thinking, spoiler, it's never good, or catastrophizing, where you expect the worst outcome from a simple interaction. It's like your brain's running a highlight reel of every awkward moment and turning it into a full-length horror film. The goal isn't to eliminate these thoughts completely because, let's be real, they're not going anywhere overnight, but to recognize them for what they are, mental hiccups, not facts. Once you see them for what they are, they lose a bit of their power. It's like spotting the strings on a puppet show. Suddenly it doesn't seem quite so real. Social anxiety's partners in crime, genetics and environment. If you've ever wondered, why me, you're not alone. Social anxiety doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's often a mix of your genetic makeup and your environment. Studies have shown that social anxiety can run in families, which means if your parents or close relatives struggled with it, you might have inherited a predisposition. But before you blame your great-aunt Mildred for your sweaty palms, remember that genetics aren't the whole story. Your environment plays a huge role too. Growing up in a highly critical household, experiencing bullying, or going through embarrassing social moments can all contribute to the development of social anxiety. It's like your brain has been trained over time to expect social interactions to go wrong. And once this expectation sets in, your mind and body start reacting accordingly, creating a vicious cycle where anxiety feeds more anxiety. But here's the silver lining. What's learned can also be unlearned. You're not stuck with these patterns forever. With the right techniques, you can retrain your brain to react differently, dialing down the alarm bells that go off in your head whenever you're faced with a social challenge. The power of small steps. Why gradual exposure works. Gradual exposure is like retraining that overprotective bodyguard brain of yours. Instead of avoiding social situations and letting your anxiety grow stronger, think of it like feeding a gremlin after midnight. You face your fears in small, manageable doses. This might sound a little scary, but it's all about starting with the easy stuff and slowly working your way up. Imagine anxiety as a dimmer switch rather than an on-off button. By gradually exposing yourself to the situations that make you anxious, you're essentially turning down the intensity little by little. This method helps desensitize your brain's over-the-top reactions and shows it that, hey, maybe this whole talking to people thing isn't so bad after all. What to expect moving forward. Throughout this book, we'll guide you through practical steps to face your fears head-on, but always at a pace that feels doable. You won't be thrown into the deep end, promise. And each chapter will build on the last, helping you gain confidence as you go. We'll start small, celebrate your progress, and keep things as light and stress-free as possible. And if a bit of humor sneaks in along the way, just remember, it's all part of making this journey feel a little less like a chore and a little more like a personal adventure. So, now that you know what's happening inside that wonderful, complex brain of yours, let's get started on the practical stuff. One small step at a time, we're going to rewire those anxious circuits and turn social dread into something that, dare we say, might even be a little fun. Chapter 2, Building a Foundation, Self-Assessment and Goal Setting. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty of facing your social fears, let's take a moment to pull out the map and compass. Navigating the landscape of social anxiety without first knowing where you stand is like trying to bake a cake without a recipe. You might end up with something, but it's unlikely to be what you were hoping for. In this chapter, we're going to start by building a solid foundation. This means assessing your current relationship with social anxiety and setting realistic, meaningful goals that will guide your journey. Think of this process as putting on your best detective hat, or monocle if you're feeling fancy. You'll be investigating your own behaviors, thoughts, and triggers, all while identifying what you truly want to achieve. By the end of this chapter, you'll have a clearer picture of where you are, where you want to be, and the steps needed to get there, one manageable piece at a time. Taking stock. Understanding your social anxiety profile. First things first, let's figure out where you stand with social anxiety. This isn't about labeling yourself or playing armchair psychologist. It's about gaining insights into how social anxiety shows up in your life. You might already know that you avoid public speaking like it's the plague, or that you start sweating at the thought of meeting new people, but it's time to go a little deeper. Start by asking yourself these questions. What situations trigger my anxiety the most? Is it large groups, one-on-one conversations, or even the thought of making phone calls? How does my body react when I'm anxious? Do your palms sweat, does your heart race, or do you feel like you might faint? Noticing these physical responses is crucial because they're your body's way of communicating that it feels threatened, even if the threat is just a friendly chat. What thoughts pop into my head in these moments? Are you worried about being judged, saying something wrong, or being the center of negative attention? These thoughts often fuel your anxiety fire. What behaviors do I engage in to cope? Do you avoid eye contact, mumble, over-explain, or try to blend into the wallpaper? Recognizing these avoidance tactics is the first step toward changing them. Write down your answers. No one else is going to see them, and being brutally honest with yourself will only help. You might start to see patterns emerging, like realizing that your anxiety isn't just random. It has specific triggers and recurring thoughts. And guess what? That's actually great news, because patterns are something you can work with. Creating your anxiety hierarchy, ranking your fears. Now that you have a clearer sense of how social anxiety manifests for you, it's time to create what's called an anxiety hierarchy. Think of this as your personal ladder of fears, with the least anxiety-provoking situations at the bottom and the scariest ones at the top. This ladder will guide you as you gradually work your way up through exposure exercises in later chapters. To create your hierarchy, list out the situations that make you anxious and rank them from least to most intimidating. For example, low anxiety, making eye contact during a conversation, saying hello to a neighbor, asking a simple question in a small group. Medium anxiety, introducing yourself at a meeting, chatting with a stranger at a social event, giving a short presentation. High anxiety, speaking up in a large group, hosting a gathering, or delivering a speech in front of an audience. This hierarchy isn't set in stone. It's a living document that can evolve as you progress. The key is to have a starting point that will guide your exposure exercises. Remember, this isn't about forcing yourself to jump to the top of the ladder overnight. It's about taking it one rung at a time. Setting smart goals, turning ambition into action. With your hierarchy in hand, it's time to set some goals. But not just any goals, smart goals. This isn't just another corporate buzzword. It's a way to make sure your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. In other words, goals that you can actually stick to. Let's break down what that looks like in practice. Specific. Instead of saying, I want to be less anxious in social settings, try, I want to be able to introduce myself confidently at a networking event. Measurable. Define what success looks like. For example, I'll know I've succeeded when I can introduce myself without feeling like I want to melt into the floor. Achievable. Don't set yourself up for failure. If public speaking is a 10 on your anxiety scale, don't make your first goal to give a TED Talk. Start smaller, like sharing an opinion in a meeting. Relevant. Make sure your goals align with what truly matters to you. If your goal is to be more social but you have no interest in large parties, then focus on smaller, more meaningful interactions. Time-bound. Set a timeline. I will work up to this goal over the next 2 months by practicing at least once a week. Setting smart goals helps you move forward in a structured way, making your progress feel less like random chance and more like a deliberate path to success. And when you hit those goals, don't forget to celebrate, even if it's just with a happy dance or your favorite snack. Visualizing success. The power of positive imagery. Visualization might sound a little woo-woo, but there's solid science behind it. Athletes do it, performers do it, and guess what? It can work for anxiety too. The brain often can't distinguish between something vividly imagined and something real, so when you visualize yourself succeeding in a social situation, you're essentially training your brain to handle it better in real life. Try this exercise. Close your eyes and imagine yourself calmly and confidently handling a social situation that's on your anxiety hierarchy. Picture every detail, the room, the people, your relaxed body language, and your clear, strong voice. The more vividly you can imagine this scenario, the better. Do this regularly, especially before facing a challenging situation, and you'll start to feel more prepared when the real thing happens. Tracking your progress. The importance of reflection. As you begin tackling your goals, it's crucial to keep track of your progress. Not just to see how far you've come, but to spot what's working and what needs tweaking. A simple journal or notes app will do. Anything where you can jot down what you tried, how it felt, and any successes or setbacks. For each attempt, ask yourself, what went well? Even the smallest wins count, like making eye contact or speaking up once. What was challenging? Was there a particular thought or physical sensation that made it hard? What can I do differently next time? Maybe it's practicing relaxation techniques beforehand or breaking the task into even smaller steps. Reflecting doesn't just help you improve. It also keeps you motivated by highlighting how much you're growing. Plus, on those tougher days when it feels like you're going nowhere, looking back at your progress can be the perfect reminder that every step counts. Getting comfortable with discomfort. Embracing the awkward. One of the biggest hurdles in overcoming social anxiety is the fear of feeling awkward or uncomfortable. Spoiler alert, you're going to feel that way sometimes, and that's okay. Discomfort is part of the process, like that awkward phase every teenager goes through, painful but ultimately leading to growth. Instead of trying to avoid these feelings, lean into them. Treat them as proof that you're stepping outside your comfort zone and doing the hard work of change. Awkwardness isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of bravery. The more you allow yourself to feel it without judgment, the less power it will have over you. Wrapping up, the foundation is set. Now that you've assessed where you are, set your goals, and prepared for the journey ahead, you're ready to start taking those small steps that lead to big changes. You've got your map, your compass, and a sense of direction. Each rung of that anxiety ladder is a chance to grow stronger, braver, and more comfortable in your own skin. Remember, this isn't about sprinting to the finish line. It's a marathon with lots of water breaks and the occasional pit stop. And hey, if you stumble along the way, that's all part of the process. Dust yourself off, adjust your goals if needed, and keep moving forward. You're not just building skills, you're building a new, more confident version of yourself. Let's keep climbing. Chapter 3, Starting Small. Mastering one-on-one interactions. Social anxiety often feels the most intense when there's nowhere to hide, like during a one-on-one conversation. There's no crowd to blend into, no background noise to cover awkward silences, and no escape plan that doesn't involve a polite excuse that sounds more like a desperate plea. But here's the good news. Mastering one-on-one interactions is not just doable, it's one of the most effective starting points on your journey to overcoming social anxiety. This chapter is all about taking control of these seemingly intimidating moments and turning them into opportunities for growth. One-on-one interactions are often less about saying the perfect thing and more about feeling comfortable in your own skin, awkward pauses and all. The goal isn't to transform into a charming social butterfly overnight, but to take those small, deliberate steps that will gradually increase your confidence. By the end of this chapter, you'll have a toolkit of techniques designed to help you navigate these interactions with less dread and more ease. The art of small talk, breaking the ice without melting down. Small talk, the casual, everyday conversation that, for many people with social anxiety, feels more like an episode of Survivor than a friendly exchange. Whether it's chatting with a coworker at the coffee machine or making conversation with someone new, small talk can often feel shallow, forced, or just plain scary. But here's the secret. Small talk isn't about saying something profound. It's about creating a connection, however brief, and practicing the art of engaging with others in a low-stakes way. Start with the basics. Focus on the setting or the context to guide your conversation. Here are some gentle conversation starters that you can adapt to fit your style. Comment on your surroundings. This place always has great music playing. Have you been here before? Ask for an opinion. I'm trying to decide between these two drinks. Any recommendations? And mention a shared experience. This line is always so long. Do you come here often? These openers are easy and, more importantly, relatable. You're not fishing for compliments or trying to impress. You're simply inviting the other person into a shared moment. And if the conversation fizzles out, that's okay. The goal isn't a perfect interaction but a comfortable one. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Body language, your secret weapon or kryptonite. Ever notice how some people seem effortlessly comfortable during conversations? It's not always about what they say but how they present themselves. Your body language plays a huge role in how you're perceived and, crucially, how you feel during an interaction. Good news, this is something you can control even if your mind is still catching up. Here's how to use body language to your advantage. Maintain open posture. Keep your arms relaxed by your sides rather than crossed. Crossed arms can make you look defensive or closed off, even if that's not how you feel. And make eye contact, but don't stare. Eye contact can be intimidating, but it's one of the simplest ways to show that you're engaged. Aim for a balance. Look at the person when they're speaking, but don't feel the need to lock eyes like you're in a staring contest. A few seconds at a time is more than enough. Smile. Genuinely smiling signals friendliness and approachability. Even a slight smile can break down barriers and make both you and the other person feel more at ease. And mirror their movements. Subtly mirroring the other person's body language can create a sense of rapport. If they lean in slightly, you can do the same. It's not about copying but rather syncing up in a way that feels natural. By focusing on these nonverbal cues, you can help put both yourself and the other person at ease. Your body sends messages, even when your words struggle, so use it as a tool to help bridge the gap between nervousness and connection. Listening over speaking, the pressure-free conversation hack. One of the most liberating realizations about one-on-one conversations is this: you don't have to do all the talking. In fact, being a good listener can be your greatest asset. People love talking about themselves, their interests, and their experiences, and when you shift the focus onto them, the pressure on you diminishes. Plus, you'll often find that genuinely listening to someone else can be incredibly engaging and, dare we say, enjoyable. Here's how to become a better listener. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, ask questions that invite more detail. For example, what do you like most about your job? Or, how did you get interested in that hobby? These questions not only keep the conversation going but also make the other person feel valued. Practice active listening. Show that you're engaged by nodding, making brief comments like, "I see," or, "That's interesting," and occasionally summarizing what they've said with responses like, "So, it sounds like you really enjoy." This shows that you're not just hearing their words but actually processing them. Resist the urge to plan your response. One of the common pitfalls in anxious conversations is focusing on what you'll say next instead of actually listening. It's like watching a movie while reading the plot summary, you miss the real action. Try to stay present and trust that the right response will come naturally. When you focus more on listening, you'll notice the pressure to be witty or interesting fades away. You're not the star of the show, you're the audience, and that's a far less stressful role to play. Handling silences. Making friends with the awkward pause. If there's one thing that can turn an otherwise pleasant conversation into a sweaty palmed ordeal, it's the dreaded awkward silence. That moment when the flow of conversation grinds to a halt and you're left staring at each other, desperately searching for something, anything to say. But here's a fun fact. Silences aren't as awkward as you think, they're just moments between thoughts. Instead of panicking when the conversation lulls, use these pauses as a chance to reset. Take a breath, smile, and think of the silence as a natural rhythm of communication. Not every conversation has to be a constant stream of chatter, and a little quiet can actually create space for more meaningful exchanges. If you need to break the silence but aren't sure how, try returning to a previous topic or introducing a new one with a light comment. Something like, "Anyway, you were saying," or, "Oh, that reminds me," can bridge the gap and get the conversation flowing again. Remember, it's not about filling every second with words, it's about feeling comfortable enough to let the conversation breathe. Managing your inner critic. Quelling the post-conversation analysis. If you're like most people with social anxiety, the conversation doesn't end when the talking stops. It continues in your mind, sometimes for hours or even days afterward, as you replay every word and wonder what you could have said differently. This post-conversation analysis is a common pitfall, and it's fueled by your inner critic, the voice that tells you you're awkward, that you said something stupid, or that the other person secretly thinks you're a weirdo. The first step in managing your inner critic is to recognize that it's not an objective commentator. It's a heckler. Its job isn't to give you constructive feedback but to make you feel insecure. When you catch yourself spiraling into self-criticism, try this exercise. Imagine you're talking to a friend who just had the same conversation you did. Would you criticize them harshly or would you offer reassurance? Chances are you'd be kind and encouraging. Give yourself that same grace. Another helpful tactic is to challenge your thoughts directly. Instead of accepting your inner critic's narrative as the truth, ask yourself if there's any real evidence to back it up. Did the other person seem engaged? Did they smile or respond positively? Often you'll find that your critic's perspective is skewed, and the reality is far kinder than your mind would have you believe. Reframing mistakes, turning missteps into learning moments. No one has flawless conversations all the time, not even seasoned public speakers or the world's most charming people. Mistakes, misunderstandings, and awkward moments are part of the human experience, and they don't define your worth or social abilities. Instead of seeing every conversational hiccup as a disaster, try reframing them as opportunities to learn. Let's say you said something that didn't land quite right, or you stumbled over your words. Instead of beating yourself up, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Maybe you realize that you need to slow down when you speak, or perhaps you notice that you jumped into a topic too quickly. Each conversation is a mini experiment, and every misstep is just data that helps you refine your approach next time. The goal isn't to eliminate mistakes but to embrace them as part of your growth process. Celebrate the fact that you're putting yourself out there, mistakes and all, and remember that every conversation, no matter how it goes, is a step forward. Wrapping up, one conversation at a time. Mastering one-on-one interactions isn't about becoming the life of the party or dazzling everyone you meet with your wit and charm. It's about building comfort and confidence in the smallest, simplest social exchanges. It's about realizing that every conversation is a chance to practice, grow, and become just a little bit more at ease with yourself and others. As you continue to engage in one-on-one conversations, remember that perfection isn't the goal, connection is. Each interaction, no matter how brief or seemingly insignificant, is a valuable step on your journey. You're not just learning to talk to others, you're learning to talk to yourself with kindness, patience, and a willingness to keep trying no matter what. Keep these techniques in your back pocket, and don't be afraid to use them whenever you need a little boost. You've got this, one conversation at a time. Chapter 4. Expanding your comfort zone. Speaking up in small groups. If there's one thing that can make your heart race faster than a triple shot of espresso, it's speaking up in a small group. Whether it's a casual get-together with friends, a team meeting at work, or a lively family dinner, the dynamics of a small group can feel intimidating. Suddenly there's more than one set of eyes on you and the stakes feel higher. But here's the good news. Small groups are actually the perfect training ground for building your social confidence. They're more intimate than a large crowd but not as intense as one-on-one interactions, making them an ideal next step on your journey. This chapter is all about expanding your comfort zone in small group settings. We'll explore how to manage the anxiety that comes with speaking up, how to navigate group dynamics, and how to contribute in ways that feel authentic to you. By the end of this chapter, you'll have a range of strategies to help you not just survive, but thrive in these social scenarios. Understanding group dynamics. Why small groups feel so big. Let's start by addressing why small groups can feel so daunting. In a one-on-one conversation, your focus is on just one person, but in a group, there's a sense of collective attention. You're not just speaking to one individual, you're engaging with an entire mini-audience. This shift in focus can make you feel like the spotlight is on you, amplifying every word, gesture, and pause. But here's the secret. The spotlight isn't nearly as bright as it feels. In reality, people in small groups are often more focused on themselves than on scrutinizing you. They're thinking about what they'll say next, whether they're being understood or how they're coming across. Once you realize that everyone is caught up in their own experience, it takes a lot of pressure off. You're not performing on stage, you're participating in a shared conversation. Understanding group dynamics also means recognizing the flow of conversation. Groups tend to have their own rhythm with discussions that ebb and flow naturally. Sometimes you'll have a lot to say, other times you'll just listen. Both roles are equally important, and knowing when to jump in and when to sit back is a skill that comes with practice. Starting small, finding your voice in a group setting. One of the most challenging aspects of speaking up in a group is knowing when and how to insert yourself into the conversation. It can feel like trying to merge into traffic during rush hour. Everyone's already moving and you're just trying not to cause a pileup. But just like with traffic, there's a way to ease in without feeling like you're crashing the party. Start by observing the group's flow. Notice how people take turns, who tends to speak more, and when natural pauses occur. Use these pauses as opportunities to make your move. You don't need to dominate the conversation or have the most groundbreaking insight. You just need to add something, no matter how small. Here are some gentle entry points. Echoing or agreeing. If someone makes a point you resonate with, chime in with a simple, "I agree," or "That's a great point." This shows engagement and gets you used to the rhythm of speaking up. Adding on, build on what someone else has said. I've noticed that too, and I also think, this way you're contributing without having to introduce a brand new topic. Asking questions. Questions are a fantastic way to engage without feeling the pressure to make a statement. "That's interesting. How did you come up with that idea?" Or, "Can you explain more about what you mean?" Not only does this keep the conversation going, but it also shifts the focus back to the other person. The goal here isn't to have a perfectly timed, polished contribution. It's about getting comfortable with the act of speaking up, even if it's just a sentence or two. Each small step helps you build momentum, making it easier to participate the next time. Managing the fear of judgment. Reframing how you see yourself. One of the biggest barriers to speaking up in groups is the fear of being judged. You might worry that your comments will be seen as silly, irrelevant, or that you'll somehow embarrass yourself. But here's a reality check. Most people aren't critiquing your every word. In fact, they're often just happy you're contributing, and they're far more forgiving than your anxious mind would have you believe. To manage the fear of judgment, start by reframing how you see yourself in these interactions. Instead of focusing on what others might think, shift your attention to what you're bringing to the table. Remember that your perspective is valuable, even if it's different or not as polished as you'd like. You're there to connect, not to impress. If you find yourself ruminating on what others might be thinking, try this exercise. Imagine you're in the audience, listening to someone else who is speaking up. Would you be judging their every word, or would you be appreciating their willingness to share? Most likely you'd be supportive or neutral at worst. Apply that same mindset to yourself. You're not there to deliver a TED Talk, you're simply engaging in a conversation. Handling interruptions and overlapping conversations. Navigating the noise. Group conversations can be chaotic. People talk over each other, interruptions happen, and sometimes it feels like a verbal wrestling match just to get a word in. If you're already feeling anxious, this dynamic can make you want to retreat rather than engage. But instead of seeing interruptions as a personal affront, recognize them as a natural part of group communication. Here are some ways to handle interruptions without losing your cool. Stay calm and patient. If someone cuts you off, take a breath and let them finish. When there's a pause, you can jump back in by saying, "As I was saying," or "just to finish my thought." This shows confidence without being confrontational. Assert your space. Gently, if you're struggling to get a word in, it's okay to use a little assertiveness. "I'd love to add something here," or "I have a quick thought on that," can help you carve out a moment to speak. Keep it light. If the conversation is moving too fast, don't be afraid to make a light comment about it. "Wow, this is a lively discussion," can break the tension and give you a moment to reset. Remember, interruptions aren't a reflection of your value in the conversation. They're just part of the messy, wonderful reality of human communication. Reading the room, tuning into group energy. One of the keys to feeling more comfortable in small groups is learning to read the room. This means paying attention not just to what's being said but also to the group's overall vibe. Are people energized or more subdued? Is the conversation lighthearted or serious? Tuning into these cues can help you gauge how to contribute in a way that feels natural. For example, if the group is joking around, don't feel pressured to make a grand statement. A simple comment or chuckle can be enough. On the flip side, if the mood is more reflective, you might feel more comfortable sharing a thought or asking a deeper question. The more you practice reading the room, the better you'll get at finding your place within the group's dynamic. Using your strengths, playing to what you do best. It's easy to feel overwhelmed in a group if you're trying to fit into a mold that doesn't suit you. But here's a thought. Instead of forcing yourself to be something you're not, why not play to your strengths? Maybe you're a great listener, a thoughtful observer, or someone who asks insightful questions. Whatever your natural tendencies are, use them as your entry point into the conversation. For instance, if you're not comfortable being the loudest voice, you don't have to be. You can offer quieter, more deliberate contributions that still carry weight. If you're good at connecting ideas, be the one who ties different threads of the conversation together. Your strengths are what make you unique, and they're just as valuable as any other type of contribution. Practicing self-compassion. It's okay to be nervous. Even with all the tips and tricks, speaking up in a group can still be nerve-wracking. And that's okay. It's perfectly normal to feel anxious, to stumble over your words, or to feel like you could have said something better. The important thing is to be kind to yourself in these moments. You're not failing, you're learning. When you feel your anxiety creeping in, remind yourself that everyone in the group has been nervous at some point, even if they don't show it. No one is expecting perfection. They're just glad you're part of the conversation. Celebrate each small victory, whether it's making a comment, asking a question, or even just staying present without retreating into your thoughts. Wrapping up. Embracing your place in the group. Expanding your comfort zone in small groups isn't about transforming into the loudest voice in the room. It's about finding your own rhythm, speaking up when you feel ready, and recognizing that your presence matters, even if you don't have all the answers. Each time you engage, you're chipping away at the walls that anxiety has built, making room for connection, understanding, and growth. Remember, it's okay to start small. Chapter 5. The Power of Public Spaces, Navigating Crowds and Public Settings. Stepping into a crowded room or bustling public space can feel like walking into a lion's den when you have social anxiety. The sheer volume of people, the overlapping chatter, and the feeling of being one among many can be overwhelming. Whether it's a packed cafe, a busy park, or a social event where everyone seems effortlessly at ease, these environments often crank up anxiety to maximum volume. You might feel like every pair of eyes is on you, scrutinizing your every move, or worse, that you're invisible in a sea of strangers, utterly out of place. But here's the thing. Public spaces are not the enemy. In fact, they offer a unique opportunity to practice being around people without the pressure of direct interaction. Unlike small group settings where the focus can shift directly to you, public spaces allow you to blend in, observe, and engage at your own pace. This chapter will explore how you can turn these seemingly intimidating environments into low-pressure training grounds for managing your social anxiety. We'll look at ways to navigate crowds, reduce anxiety, and even find moments of calm amidst the chaos. Reframing public spaces, from threats to opportunities. The first step in becoming more comfortable in public spaces is to change how you perceive them. Right now, you might see crowded areas as anxiety traps, places where you're bound to feel awkward, out of place, or overwhelmed. But what if you started seeing them differently? What if public spaces were actually opportunities to practice being around others without the commitment of direct engagement? Think of it like this. In a public setting, you have the freedom to choose how much or how little you interact. You can sit quietly in a coffee shop, people watch at a park, or stroll through a busy street without anyone expecting anything from you. You're not required to perform, make conversation, or be noticed. Public spaces are one of the few social settings where you can be present without being the center of attention, making them ideal for practicing being around others while still maintaining control. Instead of viewing public spaces as stressful, start seeing them as environments where you can gradually expose yourself to the presence of others. The next time you find yourself in a crowded place, take a moment to observe without judgment. Notice how people are absorbed in their own activities, barely aware of your presence. This shift in perspective can help reduce the feeling of being under a microscope and allow you to exist in the space without the pressure to perform. Finding your comfort zone. Identifying safe spots in public settings. When navigating public spaces, it's helpful to identify areas where you feel most at ease. These are your safe spots, places where you can retreat, regroup, and ground yourself when anxiety starts to spike. Safe spots can be as simple as a quiet corner in a cafe, a bench in a park, or a spot near an exit where you can easily leave if things get too overwhelming. Finding your comfort zone in a public setting isn't about hiding. It's about giving yourself the flexibility to manage your anxiety. Start by exploring different environments at different times of the day. You might find that certain places are less crowded or more relaxing at off-peak hours, making them more manageable as you build your confidence. For example, a bustling cafe might feel overwhelming during the morning rush but peaceful and inviting in the late afternoon. Once you've identified your safe spots, use them as a base for gradually increasing your exposure to more challenging environments. Spend time in these spaces, get used to the sounds, the movements, and the presence of others. You don't have to do anything dramatic. Simply being there is enough. The goal is to acclimate yourself to the environment at your own pace, allowing your anxiety to naturally decrease over time. Breathing through the noise. Managing anxiety in crowded spaces. Crowded environments often come with a sensory overload, loud conversations, the clinking of cups, the hum of traffic, and the constant motion of people moving in every direction. This sensory barrage can heighten anxiety, making you feel like you're drowning in noise and activity. To manage this, it's essential to have grounding techniques that help you stay centered, even when the world around you feels chaotic. One of the simplest yet most effective techniques is mindful breathing. When you feel anxiety creeping in, focus on your breath. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a few seconds, and then exhale slowly through your mouth. Repeat this cycle a few times, paying attention to the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Breathing exercises like this can help activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the body's fight-or-flight response, calming your mind and reducing physical symptoms of anxiety. As you breathe, try to ground yourself by tuning into your surroundings in a controlled way. Focus on specific sensory details, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the texture of the chair you're sitting in, or the rhythm of background music. Engaging your senses in this way can pull you out of the anxiety spiral and bring you back to the present moment. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the crowd, you become an observer, anchored by your breath and sensory awareness. Small acts of engagement. Dipping your toes into social waters. Once you feel more comfortable simply being in public spaces, the next step is to engage in small, manageable ways. This doesn't mean striking up a conversation with strangers or putting yourself in the spotlight. Instead, start with tiny acts that involve brief social interactions but don't require a significant emotional investment. For example, you might begin by ordering food or coffee at a counter rather than using a self-service option. When you do, make eye contact with the barista, smile, and say thank you. These micro-interactions are quick, predictable, and low stakes, making them perfect for practice. You're not trying to have a meaningful conversation. You're just getting used to the act of engaging with another person in a public setting. Another simple engagement exercise is to ask for directions or information. This could be as straightforward as asking a store employee where to find an item or inquiring about the time of the next bus. These small exchanges allow you to practice speaking up without the pressure of extended dialogue, giving you the chance to build confidence incrementally. As you grow more comfortable, you can gradually increase the level of engagement. Attend a public event like a farmer's market, a gallery opening, or a community workshop. These settings provide natural opportunities to interact without the expectation of sustained conversation. The key is to approach each interaction as an experiment, not a performance. There's no right or wrong way to engage, just opportunities to practice and learn. Embracing the role of the observer, you don't always have to participate. One of the great things about public spaces is that they allow you to be an observer. You can sit on the sidelines, watch the world go by, and absorb the energy of a crowd without actively participating. This can be incredibly freeing, especially when social anxiety makes you feel pressured to engage more than you're comfortable with. Observing is not a passive act. It's a powerful way to familiarize yourself with social environments without the stress of direct involvement. Spend time people watching, noting how others interact, move, and express themselves. You'll often notice that most people are far from perfect, stumbling over words, pausing awkwardly, or looking just as uncertain as you feel. These observations can be reassuring, reminding you that social blunders are part of the human experience and not something unique to you. Being an observer also allows you to study the social norms and cues of different settings. Pay attention to how people greet each other, what kinds of conversations seem to flow naturally, and how body language influences interactions. This silent participation builds your social awareness and helps you feel more prepared for when you do decide to engage. Celebrating the small wins. Acknowledging your progress in public spaces. Navigating public spaces when you have social anxiety is no small feat, and every step forward deserves recognition. It's easy to focus on what you could have done better or compare yourself to others who seem effortlessly at ease, but progress is not a straight line. It's a series of small, often invisible victories that add up over time. Celebrate each step you take, whether it's spending 10 extra minutes in a busy cafe, striking up a brief conversation with a stranger, or simply showing up in a crowded place when you wanted to stay home. Acknowledge your courage, no matter how modest the action might seem. Progress is made up of these moments, the times when you face your fears, even if it's just by sitting quietly among others. Keep a journal or mental note of these small wins. Reflect on how each experience felt, what you learned, and how it pushed you a little further out of your comfort zone. Over time, these reflections become a powerful reminder of your growth and resilience. You're not just surviving public spaces. You're reclaiming them as places where you can exist comfortably, even joyfully. Wrapping up. Reclaiming your place in the world. Public spaces can be daunting, but they also hold immense potential for transformation. They're where life happens, where people gather, connect, and share the simple, everyday moments that make up our human experience. By gradually exposing yourself to these environments, you're not just learning to tolerate them, you're learning to reclaim your place within them. Remember, it's okay to start small. Find your safe spots, practice your grounding techniques, and take tiny steps toward more engagement. Be kind to yourself as you navigate these challenges, and don't forget to celebrate each moment of bravery. You're not alone in your journey, and every time you show up, you're building the foundation for a more confident, connected future. Keep going. The world is waiting, and it's got a spot just for you. Chapter 6. Conversations with Strangers. Turning Anxiety into Opportunity. The idea of talking to strangers often triggers a unique kind of social anxiety. Whether it's chatting with someone in line at the grocery store, striking up a conversation at a party, or simply making small talk with a new colleague, the unpredictability of interacting with someone you don't know can feel like stepping into uncharted territory. Strangers are, by definition, unknown, and the fear of making a misstep, saying the wrong thing, coming off as awkward, or just plain freezing up, can keep you locked in a cycle of avoidance. But here's the truth. Every conversation with a stranger is an opportunity. It's a chance to practice your social skills, to step outside of your comfort zone, and to connect, however briefly, with another person. These moments don't have to be perfect. They just have to happen. In this chapter, we'll explore how to shift your mindset about talking to strangers, turning these everyday interactions from anxiety-inducing encounters into opportunities for growth. We'll look at how to manage the fear, embrace the unpredictability, and even find joy in these small connections. Why talking to strangers feels so intimidating. Talking to strangers taps into some of our most primal fears. As social creatures, we're wired to seek acceptance and avoid rejection, and interacting with someone new can feel like a gamble where the stakes are high. There's the fear of judgment. What will this person think of me? And the fear of saying something that might make you look foolish or out of place. These fears are compounded by the unpredictability of the situation. Unlike conversations with friends or family, where you have a shared history and a sense of how the other person will respond, talking to a stranger is a blank slate. You don't know what will happen, and for those with social anxiety, that uncertainty can be terrifying. However, it's important to remember that most of these fears are based on assumptions, not reality. The vast majority of strangers aren't scrutinizing your every word or silently judging your every move. They're just as wrapped up in their own world, often relieved that someone else is making the effort to connect. Understanding this can help you reframe your fears. Talking to strangers isn't a test you have to pass. It's simply a moment of human connection, no more and no less. The power of a friendly opening, initiating conversations with ease. One of the most daunting aspects of talking to strangers is figuring out how to start. The pressure of coming up with a perfect opening line can feel paralyzing, as if the entire success of the interaction hinges on your first words. But here's the thing, you don't need a clever or profound introduction. Most people aren't expecting you to wow them with wit or dazzle them with deep insights. A simple, friendly opening is often all it takes to get the conversation rolling. Start with something natural and relevant to the situation. If you're waiting in line, a comment about the wait time or a light-hearted observation about your surroundings can be enough. If you're at a social event, a question about how they know the host or what brought them there can open the door. The key is to keep it casual and to the point, allowing the conversation to unfold organically without forcing it. Once you've made the initial connection, follow the flow of the conversation. Listen actively to what the other person is saying, and respond with genuine interest. You don't need to plan your next statement or worry about steering the discussion in a particular direction. Just be present, respond naturally, and let the interaction evolve. Remember, it's not about impressing the other person. It's about creating a moment of shared dialogue. Embracing awkwardness, turning missteps into connection. One of the biggest fears in talking to strangers is the possibility of awkwardness. Maybe you say something that doesn't quite land, or there's an uncomfortable pause where neither of you seems to know what to say next. These moments can feel excruciating, especially when your anxiety starts to amplify every perceived misstep. But awkwardness, as uncomfortable as it might feel, is a natural part of conversation. It's something that everyone experiences regardless of how confident or socially skilled they might appear. Instead of trying to avoid awkwardness at all costs, learn to embrace it. Awkward moments aren't failures. They're simply part of the ebb and flow of human interaction. If you stumble over your words or hit a conversational dead end, it's okay to acknowledge it with a lighthearted comment or a smile. Well, that didn't come out right, or, I totally lost my train of thought, can diffuse the tension and turn what feels like a blunder into a relatable human moment. When you own the awkwardness instead of trying to hide it, you not only put yourself at ease but often make the other person more comfortable too. It's also helpful to remember that most people are far more forgiving of conversational missteps than we give them credit for. They're not cataloging your every mistake, they're often just glad you're making the effort. By normalizing awkwardness, you free yourself from the unrealistic expectation of perfect conversations and open the door to more authentic connections. Navigating the fear of rejection. Reframing negative responses. Rejection, even in its mildest forms, can feel like a personal affront when you have social anxiety. Whether it's a curt response, an uninterested glance, or someone simply not engaging in the way you'd hoped, these experiences can sting. But here's a crucial mindset shift. Not every interaction is going to be a winner, and that's okay. People have their own moods, distractions, and reasons for responding the way they do, most of which have nothing to do with you. Reframe rejection as a neutral event rather than a personal failure. If someone doesn't respond warmly or cuts the conversation short, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. They might be having a bad day, feeling shy themselves, or simply not in the mood to chat. Their response is a reflection of their own world, not a judgment on your worth or conversational skills. Treat each conversation as an experiment rather than a test. You're not aiming for a perfect outcome. You're simply practicing the art of connecting. Sometimes it will go well and sometimes it won't, but each interaction is valuable in its own right. Even the less than ideal conversations teach you something about yourself, about others, and about how to navigate the unpredictable terrain of social interaction. Focusing on the other person, shifting the spotlight away from yourself. One effective way to ease the pressure of talking to strangers is to shift your focus from yourself to the other person. Social anxiety often amplifies self-consciousness, making you hyper-aware of your own words, actions, and perceived flaws. But when you direct your attention outward, you not only take the heat off yourself but also create a more engaging interaction. Start by showing genuine curiosity. Ask open-ended questions that invite the other person to share more about themselves. People love talking about their interests, experiences, and opinions, and when you show interest, it naturally keeps the conversation flowing. As you listen, look for common ground or points of interest that you can build on. This approach not only makes the conversation feel more effortless but also deepens the connection by making the other person feel seen and heard. By focusing on the other person, you also give your anxious mind a task to focus on, being present and engaged. This active listening keeps you from getting lost in your own self-doubt or overthinking, grounding you in the moment and helping the conversation feel more natural. The value of brief connections. Not every conversation needs to be profound. One of the misconceptions about talking to strangers is that every conversation needs to be meaningful or memorable. But the truth is, brief, everyday interactions are just as valuable as deep, soul-searching dialogues. A quick chat with a cashier, a friendly exchange with a fellow commuter, or a passing comment to a neighbor might seem insignificant, but these small moments add up. They're like social exercise, short, low-pressure workouts that strengthen your confidence over time. When you approach these brief connections with the mindset that they don't have to lead anywhere or mean anything beyond the moment, it reduces the pressure. You're not trying to make a new best friend or have a life-changing conversation. You're simply engaging with the world around you in small, manageable ways. And often, it's these fleeting, light-hearted interactions that remind us of the simple joy of human connection. Embrace the idea that not every conversation needs to have a purpose or a perfect ending. Sometimes it's enough just to share a smile, exchange a few words, and go about your day. These tiny acts of connection not only help desensitize you to the fear of talking to strangers but also enrich your everyday life in ways you might not expect. Turning anxiety into opportunity, redefining success in conversations. Success in conversations with strangers isn't about dazzling them with your charm or leaving a lasting impression. It's about showing up, taking the risk to engage, and being willing to navigate whatever comes your way. Each time you step outside of your comfort zone, no matter how the conversation unfolds, you're pushing back against the anxiety that tries to keep you small. That's worth celebrating. Redefine success not as the outcome of the interaction but as the act of trying. The very fact that you initiated a conversation, stayed present through the awkwardness, or simply didn't shy away is a victory in itself. These moments of bravery, however small, are the building blocks of greater confidence. You're proving to yourself that you can handle the uncertainty, the unpredictability, and even the occasional misstep. The more you practice, the more these conversations will start to feel like opportunities rather than threats. Opportunities to learn, to connect, and to experience the world in a richer, more engaged way. You'll begin to see strangers not as potential sources of judgment but as fellow travelers in this shared human experience, each of them navigating their own anxieties and uncertainties. Wrapping up. Embracing the unknown, one stranger at a time. Talking to strangers is one of the most powerful ways to expand your social comfort zone. It's a practice in embracing the unknown, in stepping beyond the familiar confines of your social circle and allowing yourself to engage with the broader world. Every interaction, no matter how brief or seemingly insignificant, is a chance to practice being present, to connect, and to turn anxiety into opportunity. As you continue to challenge yourself, remember that perfection isn't the goal, presence is. Be kind to yourself as you navigate these interactions, and don't be afraid to celebrate the small wins. Each conversation, each smile, and each awkward moment is part of your journey toward a more confident, connected self. Keep taking those small steps. You're doing great, and the world is full of strangers just waiting to become fleeting, yet valuable parts of your story. Start by showing genuine curiosity. Ask open-ended questions that invite the other person to share more about themselves. People love talking about their interests, experiences, and opinions, and when you show interest, it naturally keeps the conversation flowing. As you listen, look for common ground or points of interest that you can build on. This approach not only makes the conversation feel more effortless but also deepens the connection by making the other person feel seen and heard. By focusing on the other person, you also give your anxious mind a task to focus on, being present and engaged. This active listening keeps you from getting lost in your own self-doubt or overthinking, grounding you in the moment and helping the conversation feel more natural. The value of brief connections. Not every conversation needs to be profound. One of the misconceptions about talking to strangers is that every conversation needs to be meaningful or memorable. But the truth is, brief, everyday interactions are just as valuable as deep, soul-searching dialogues. A quick chat with a cashier, a friendly exchange with a fellow commuter, or a passing comment to a neighbor might seem insignificant, but these small moments add up. They're like social exercise, short, low-pressure workouts that strengthen your confidence over time. When you approach these brief connections with the mindset that they don't have to lead anywhere or mean anything beyond the moment, it reduces the pressure. You're not trying to make a new best friend or have a life-changing conversation. You're simply engaging with the world around you in small, manageable ways. And often, It's these fleeting, light-hearted interactions that remind us of the simple joy of human connection. Embrace the idea that not every conversation needs to have a purpose or a perfect ending. Sometimes it's enough just to share a smile, exchange a few words, and go about your day. These tiny acts of connection not only help desensitize you to the fear of talking to strangers but also enrich your everyday life in ways you might not expect. Turning anxiety into opportunity, redefining success in conversations. Success in conversations with strangers isn't about dazzling them with your charm or leaving a lasting impression. It's about showing up, taking the risk to engage, and being willing to navigate whatever comes your way. Each time you step outside of your comfort zone, no matter how the conversation unfolds, you're pushing back against the anxiety that tries to keep you small. That's worth celebrating. Redefine success not as the outcome of the interaction but as the act of trying. The very fact that you initiated a conversation, stayed present through the awkwardness, or simply didn't shy away is a victory in itself. These moments of bravery, however small, are the building blocks of greater confidence. You're proving to yourself that you can handle the uncertainty, the unpredictability, and even the occasional misstep. The more you practice, the more these conversations will start to feel like opportunities rather than threats. Opportunities to learn, to connect, and to experience the world in a richer, more engaged way. You'll begin to see strangers not as potential sources of judgment but as fellow travelers in this shared human experience, each of them navigating their own anxieties and uncertainties. Wrapping up. Embracing the unknown, one stranger at a time. Talking to strangers is one of the most powerful ways to expand your social comfort zone. It's a practice in embracing the unknown, in stepping beyond the familiar confines of your social circle and allowing yourself to engage with the broader world. Every interaction, no matter how brief or seemingly insignificant, is a chance to practice being present, to connect, and to turn anxiety into opportunity. As you continue to challenge yourself, remember that perfection isn't the goal, presence is. Be kind to yourself as you navigate these interactions, and don't be afraid to celebrate the small wins. Each conversation, each smile, and each awkward moment is part of your journey toward a more confident, connected self. Keep taking those small steps. You're doing great, and the world is full of strangers just waiting to become fleeting, yet valuable parts of your story. Chapter 7. Conquering the Spotlight. Techniques for Public Speaking and Presentations. Public speaking and presentations are often considered the ultimate challenges for anyone dealing with social anxiety. The mere thought of standing in front of a group with all eyes fixed on you can trigger a wave of dread that feels almost unbearable. The anticipation of making a mistake, forgetting your words, or simply feeling exposed can be paralyzing. It's as if you're not just speaking, you're performing, with every word and gesture subject to scrutiny. But while these fears are deeply rooted, they're not insurmountable. In fact, public speaking doesn't have to be a source of terror. It can become an empowering opportunity to express yourself, share your ideas, and even connect with others on a profound level. In this chapter, we'll explore how to reframe your approach to public speaking and presentations. We'll look at strategies for managing the anxiety that comes with being in the spotlight, practical techniques for preparing and delivering your speech, and ways to handle the unexpected moments that inevitably arise. Whether you're speaking in a meeting, giving a presentation at work, or simply sharing your thoughts in a group setting, these tools will help you transform fear into confidence. Understanding the fear. Why public speaking feels so personal. Public speaking anxiety isn't just about the act of speaking, it's about the feeling of being seen. When you're in the spotlight, the sense of exposure can trigger a primal fear, one that's deeply tied to our human need for acceptance and belonging. There's a vulnerability in putting yourself out there, sharing your ideas, and risking the possibility of rejection or criticism. It's as if every word you speak is a window into your inner world, open to the judgment of others. But the reality is often far less dramatic than our fears make it out to be. Most audiences are not eagerly waiting for you to mess up. They're generally supportive, empathetic, and more forgiving than you might imagine. They're not there to judge you harshly but to hear what you have to say. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because it shifts the narrative from one of danger to one of connection. You're not being scrutinized, you're being given an opportunity to share something of value, however big or small. Recognizing that your fear is rooted in a need for acceptance rather than a reflection of your abilities can help you approach public speaking with more compassion for yourself. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to have doubts. But those feelings don't define you, nor do they dictate your ability to speak in front of others. They're simply part of the process, an emotional hurdle that you can learn to manage and, over time, overcome. Preparation. Building confidence before you even step up. One of the most effective ways to reduce public speaking anxiety is through thorough preparation. The more prepared you feel, the less room there is for anxiety to take over. Preparation isn't just about memorizing your speech. It's about familiarizing yourself with your material, understanding your audience, and building a sense of ownership over your message. When you know your content inside and out, you're not just reciting words, you're sharing knowledge, experiences, or insights that are uniquely yours. Start by getting clear on the purpose of your presentation. What is the main message you want to convey? What do you want your audience to take away from your talk? Focusing on these core objectives can help you stay centered and guide the structure of your presentation. Break your speech into clear sections: an engaging introduction, the main points you want to cover, and a concise conclusion that reinforces your message. This structure not only helps you stay organized but also makes your presentation more digestible for your audience. Practice is a critical component of preparation. It's not about achieving perfection but about getting comfortable with the rhythm and flow of your speech. Practice in front of a mirror, record yourself, or run through it with a friend or family member. The goal is to become familiar with the material, allowing your words to come more naturally when it's time to present. As you practice, pay attention to areas where you might stumble and make adjustments to ensure that you feel confident at every stage of your talk. Visual aids such as slides or props can also be helpful tools. They not only serve to reinforce your message but also shift some of the audience's attention away from you and onto the visuals. However, it's essential not to rely on them entirely. Think of them as support, not a crutch. You are the focal point of the presentation, and your voice is what carries the message. Managing pre-speech anxiety, grounding techniques to calm your nerves. The moments leading up to a speech can be the most anxiety-inducing. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and your mind might feel like it's running at 100 miles an hour. In these moments, it's crucial to have techniques that help ground you and bring you back to the present. One of the most effective methods is deep breathing. Before you start speaking, take a few deep breaths, inhaling slowly through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. This simple act can help activate your body's relaxation response, slowing your heart rate and calming your nerves. Another useful grounding technique is visualization. Close your eyes and picture yourself delivering your speech confidently and calmly. Imagine the room, the faces in the audience, and yourself speaking with ease and authority. Visualization isn't just wishful thinking. It's a powerful way to mentally rehearse success, training your brain to expect a positive outcome rather than a fearful one. Physical grounding exercises can also be beneficial. For example, feel the weight of your feet on the ground or press your hands together to create a sense of physical stability. These small, tactile cues can help anchor you in your body and momentarily distract your mind from anxious thoughts. Lastly, consider using a short, positive affirmation before you begin. Something as simple as "I am prepared" or "I am capable" can act as a mental reset, replacing the loop of anxious thoughts with a message of self-assurance. It's a reminder that you've done the work, you're ready, and you have the ability to deliver. Engaging your audience, making connection your priority. One of the most effective ways to reduce the anxiety of public speaking is to shift your focus from performing perfectly to connecting authentically. The more you engage with your audience, the less it feels like a performance and the more it feels like a conversation. This connection starts with eye contact. Rather than scanning the room in a mechanical way, try to make brief, genuine eye contact with individuals throughout your speech. Imagine you're talking to them one-on-one, sharing your message directly with a single person rather than addressing a faceless crowd. Use your voice as a tool to connect. Vary your tone, pitch, and pace to keep your audience engaged and to emphasize key points. A monotonous delivery can make even the most compelling content feel flat, so let your natural expressiveness come through. Speak as if you're telling a story, guiding your audience through your message with a sense of enthusiasm or sincerity. Pausing is another powerful way to engage. It might seem counterintuitive. Pauses can feel like an eternity when you're anxious, but they serve a vital role. Pausing allows your audience time to absorb your words, and it gives you a moment to gather your thoughts. Use these brief silences to maintain control of the pacing, ensuring you're not rushing through your material in a flurry of nerves. Don't be afraid to bring some personality into your presentation. Whether it's a touch of humor, a personal anecdote, or a relatable comment, allowing yourself to be human makes your presentation more relatable and engaging. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian or a motivational speaker. Just let a bit of your authentic self shine through. Audiences connect with authenticity, and showing a little vulnerability can turn what feels like a high-stakes performance into a shared experience. Handling mistakes gracefully, owning the moment. Mistakes are an inevitable part of public speaking. You might forget a line, stumble over a word, or lose your train of thought. These moments can feel catastrophic when you're in front of an audience, but they're rarely as noticeable as you think. The key is not to panic or to let a small misstep derail your entire presentation. Instead, acknowledge the mistake with a sense of calm and move on. If you lose your place, take a breath and glance at your notes or slide. If you misspeak, correct yourself casually and continue. Audiences are generally forgiving and more interested in your overall message than in any minor errors. In fact, handling mistakes gracefully can actually endear you to your audience. It shows that you're human just like them, and that you can keep going even when things don't go perfectly. It's helpful to have a few recovery strategies in your back pocket. If you forget what you were going to say next, you can buy yourself a moment by asking the audience a quick question related to your topic, allowing you to regroup without drawing attention to the slip. Humor can also be a great way to defuse tension. Something as simple as, "Well, that's not how I planned it," can lighten the mood and reset the energy in the room. Remember, it's not about delivering a flawless speech. It's about showing resilience in the face of the unexpected. Every mistake is an opportunity to demonstrate poise and adaptability, qualities that audiences respect far more than rigid perfection. The aftermath, processing feedback and letting go of the post-presentation analysis. Once the speech is over, it's easy to get caught up in the post-presentation analysis, replaying every moment and critiquing every perceived flaw. This self-reflection is natural, especially if you have social anxiety, but it's important not to let it overshadow the achievement of having spoken at all. You've done something challenging, something that most people dread, and that's worth acknowledging. When receiving feedback, focus on constructive comments and let go of overly critical self-judgment. If someone offers praise, accept it graciously. Don't downplay your success or dismiss compliments as mere politeness. If you receive constructive criticism, take it as a learning opportunity rather than a personal failure. Every presentation is a chance to improve, to refine your skills, and to grow as a speaker. Above all, give yourself permission to let go of the need to overanalyze. Not every speech will be your best, and that's perfectly okay. The important thing is that you showed up, faced your fear, and shared your voice. That courage speaks volumes, far louder than any small misstep or awkward pause. Wrapping up. Embracing the spotlight one step at a time. Public speaking is often viewed as the ultimate test of confidence, but it's really about connection. Connecting with your audience, with your message, and most importantly, with yourself. It's an opportunity to step into the spotlight not as a flawless performer but as a genuine human being with something to share. As you continue to practice and refine your public speaking skills, remember that perfection is not the goal, presence is. Be kind to yourself as you navigate the nerves, the mistakes, and the moments of doubt. Each time you speak, you're building resilience, confidence, and a deeper sense of self-assuredness. Keep taking those small steps. Embrace the spotlight not as a source of anxiety but as an opportunity to shine, however brightly or quietly that may be. You have a voice worth hearing, and every time you use it, you're making the world just a little bit better. Chapter 8. Facing social triggers, dealing with parties, networking, and social gatherings. Social events like parties, networking gatherings, and other large group settings can feel like a minefield for anyone dealing with social anxiety. The prospect of navigating a room full of people, engaging in small talk, and putting yourself out there can seem overwhelming, triggering a cascade of anxious thoughts and physical symptoms long before you even arrive. You might find yourself caught in a mental tug-of-war between wanting to connect with others and the overpowering urge to avoid these situations altogether. But these events, as daunting as they may seem, are not the enemy. They are opportunities to expand your comfort zone, build new connections, and practice being yourself in social settings without the pressure to perform perfectly. The key is to approach these gatherings with a set of strategies that allow you to feel more in control, reduce anxiety, and even find moments of enjoyment. In this chapter, we'll explore practical techniques for managing the unique challenges of social events, from preparing mentally before you go to navigating the room once you're there. The psychology of social gatherings, why they trigger anxiety. Understanding why social events trigger anxiety can help you reframe your approach to these situations. At the heart of this fear is often a sense of vulnerability. When you walk into a room full of people, you're entering a space where you might feel exposed, judged, or out of place. There's the pressure to make a good impression, the fear of saying something awkward, and the overwhelming sense that everyone else seems to have it all together while you're just trying to keep your anxiety under wraps. These feelings are compounded by the unpredictability of social gatherings. Unlike structured interactions like meetings or one-on-one conversations, parties and networking events have a fluid, unscripted nature. You don't always know who you'll meet, what you'll talk about, or how the night will unfold. This uncertainty can make you feel like you're navigating without a map, amplifying your anxiety and leaving you constantly on edge. But it's important to remember that this sense of vulnerability isn't a reflection of your capabilities. It's a natural human response to being in an unfamiliar environment. Most people, even those who appear confident, have moments of insecurity in social settings. The difference is in how they manage those feelings. By understanding that you're not alone in your anxiety, you can start to let go of the unrealistic expectation that you should feel completely at ease in every social situation. Preparing for social events. Setting yourself up for success. The key to managing anxiety at social gatherings often starts long before you walk through the door. Preparation is about setting realistic expectations, planning ahead, and arming yourself with tools that help you feel more in control. Begin by recognizing that your goal isn't to be the life of the party or to network flawlessly. It's simply to show up and engage in whatever capacity feels right for you. Setting small, achievable goals, like talking to 3 new people or staying for a set amount of time, can make the event feel more manageable. Visualizing the event beforehand can also help reduce anxiety. Picture the setting, the types of people who might be there, and potential conversations you could have. This mental rehearsal can demystify the experience, making it feel less like stepping into the unknown. Think about what you'll wear, how you'll get there, and even where you might feel most comfortable once you arrive. Having these details sorted in advance minimizes the number of decisions you'll have to make in the moment, freeing up your mental energy to focus on being present. It's also helpful to arrive with a few conversation starters or topics in mind. These don't have to be groundbreaking insights. Simple, open-ended questions like, "How do you know the host?" or "What brought you here tonight?" are often enough to get a conversation going. Remember, you don't need to be the most interesting person in the room, you just need to be genuinely interested in the people you're talking to. Another crucial part of preparation is managing your physical state. Social anxiety often manifests through physical symptoms, racing heart, sweating, or feeling lightheaded. So grounding yourself before you enter the event can make a significant difference. Take a few deep breaths, do a quick body scan to relax any tense muscles, and remind yourself that it's okay to feel nervous. You're not alone in your anxiety, and you're taking courageous steps by showing up. Navigating the room, strategies for moving through social spaces. Once you're at the event, the first hurdle is often just getting comfortable in the space. It's normal to feel a rush of nerves when you first walk in, but how you handle those initial moments can set the tone for the rest of the evening. Start by giving yourself time to acclimate. Find a spot where you feel at ease, whether it's near the bar, by the snacks, or at a table with a view of the room, and take a moment to observe. Watch how others are interacting, notice the flow of conversation, and remind yourself that everyone is just people watching and trying to find their place just like you. Rather than jumping into conversations immediately, allow yourself to warm up. Smile, make eye contact, and ease into the energy of the room. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to take a brief mental break. Step outside, check your phone, or head to the restroom to regroup. These small pauses can help you reset and return to the event with a renewed sense of calm. When you're ready to engage, approach conversations with the mindset that you're simply exploring, not performing. Start with people who seem approachable, those standing alone or in smaller groups. Often, others are just as anxious to connect, and by taking the initiative, you're not only helping yourself but also making someone else's night a little easier. Remember, everyone appreciates a friendly gesture, and most people are more open to conversation than you might think. As you navigate the room, be mindful of your body language. Keep your posture open, avoid crossing your arms, and use gentle gestures that convey friendliness. Even if you feel nervous inside, projecting a sense of openness can help you feel more connected and approachable. Your body language often speaks louder than your words, so aligning your physical presence with your desire to connect can significantly reduce the internal tension of social anxiety. Handling small talk, turning surface conversations into meaningful interactions. Small talk often gets a bad rap, especially when you have social anxiety. It can feel superficial, awkward, or like a necessary evil just to get to the real conversation. But small talk serves an important purpose. It's a social bridge, a way to ease into deeper dialogue without the pressure to be profound. Instead of seeing small talk as a chore, try to reframe it as an opportunity to find common ground, share a light moment, or simply enjoy the flow of conversation. One way to make small talk feel less daunting is to focus on active listening. Rather than worrying about what you're going to say next, immerse yourself in what the other person is sharing. Nod, smile, and respond with genuine interest. Your attention doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be present. When you listen with intention, you naturally create a more engaging and relaxed conversation, allowing the dialogue to unfold more naturally. It's also helpful to ask follow-up questions. If someone mentions their job, ask what they enjoy most about it. If they talk about a recent trip, ask about their favorite part. Follow-up questions show that you're engaged and provide the other person with a chance to share more, taking some of the pressure off you to keep the conversation going. Remember, you don't need to carry the whole dialogue on your shoulders. Conversations are a two-way street, and your role is simply to participate. If you find yourself in a lull or an awkward silence, resist the urge to panic. Silences are a normal part of conversation and don't necessarily signal failure. Sometimes, a simple smile or light comment about the environment can be enough to keep things moving. And if the conversation naturally comes to an end, that's okay too. You're not obligated to maintain every interaction. It's perfectly acceptable to politely excuse yourself and move on. Dealing with rejection or disinterest, letting go of negative reactions. Not every social interaction is going to go perfectly, and that's okay. There will be times when someone doesn't respond warmly, when the conversation feels forced, or when you simply don't click with another person. In these moments, it's easy to internalize the experience as a personal failure, but it's crucial to remember that social dynamics are complex. Disinterest or rejection is rarely a reflection of your worth. It's often just a mismatch of energy, timing, or personal circumstances. When faced with a lukewarm reception, try not to dwell on it. People have their own reasons for how they interact, most of which have nothing to do with you. Instead of taking it personally, practice a simple mental reset. Remind yourself that you're here to explore and connect, not to win everyone over. Shift your focus to the next conversation or moment, knowing that each interaction is its own experience, separate from the one before. If you find that someone is closed off or not engaging, politely exit the conversation with a warm comment or a thank you, and move on without lingering on what went wrong. Your time and energy are valuable, and not every interaction will be a perfect fit. By letting go of the need for universal approval, you free yourself to enjoy the connections that do click, however brief or imperfect they may be. Celebrating your wins, acknowledging the courage to engage. Every time you attend a social event, strike up a conversation, or simply stay present in a room full of people, you're making progress. These experiences, no matter how challenging, are building blocks of confidence, resilience, and social ease. It's easy to focus on the moments that felt awkward or the conversations that didn't go as planned, but it's equally important to recognize your successes. Celebrate the small wins. The times you introduced yourself, shared a story, or simply stayed a little longer than you felt comfortable. These moments of courage add up, slowly shifting your perception of social gatherings from something to be feared into something to be navigated with a growing sense of confidence. Each event is an opportunity to learn more about yourself, refine your strategies, and build connections that might not have been possible if you hadn't taken the leap. It can be helpful to reflect on your experiences after each event. Consider what went well, what you found challenging, and what you might do differently next time. This reflection isn't about critiquing yourself but about recognizing your growth and making adjustments that support your ongoing journey. By celebrating your efforts and learning from each interaction, you empower yourself to keep moving forward. Wrapping up, finding your place in the crowd. Social gatherings, parties, and networking events are often seen as the ultimate test for those with social anxiety, but they're also opportunities to grow, connect, and expand your comfort zone. Each time you show up, engage, and put yourself out there, you're challenging the narrative that social settings are something to be feared. You're proving to yourself, one interaction at a time, that you can handle whatever comes your way. As you continue to face these social triggers, remember that it's okay to feel nervous, to have moments of doubt, and to experience the occasional awkward encounter. These are not signs of failure, they're part of the process. The important thing is that you're showing up, trying, and pushing back against the anxiety that seeks to keep you small. Keep taking those small steps. Find the joy in the connections you make, however brief. Celebrate the courage it takes to be present in a room full of people. You're not just surviving these events, you're learning to thrive within them, discovering your place in the crowd, and finding your voice among the many. Chapter 9. Online Exposure, Managing Social Anxiety in the Digital World. In today's digital age, social anxiety isn't confined to face-to-face interactions. The online world, with its constant stream of notifications, messages, and virtual gatherings, presents its own set of challenges for those who struggle with social anxiety. Whether it's posting on social media, participating in a video call, or responding to emails, the digital space can feel just as intimidating, if not more so, than in-person encounters. While you might not be physically present, the fear of judgment, misunderstanding, and negative feedback can still loom large, often amplified by the anonymity and permanence of the internet. Navigating social anxiety in the digital world requires a unique set of skills. Unlike in-person interactions, where tone, body language, and immediate feedback guide the flow of conversation, online communication can feel disconnected and open to misinterpretation. A simple message can be overanalyzed, a comment can be taken out of context, and the pressure to present a perfect online persona can feel overwhelming. In this chapter, we'll explore strategies for managing social anxiety in the virtual realm, turning digital interactions into opportunities for connection rather than sources of stress. Understanding the digital anxiety loop, why online feels so personal. The online world can feel paradoxically intimate and impersonal. On one hand, you're behind a screen, physically removed from the people you're interacting with. On the other, every post, comment, or message feels like it's etched into the digital ether, available for all to see and judge. This sense of exposure can trigger the same anxieties you might feel in person, often intensified by the perceived permanence of your words. The pressure to craft the perfect response, to say the right thing, or to present an idealized version of yourself can create a cycle of overthinking and avoidance that leaves you feeling disconnected and anxious. One of the unique aspects of digital anxiety is the lack of immediate feedback. In face-to-face interactions, you can gauge reactions in real time, see a smile, hear a laugh, or notice a nod of understanding. Online, however, you're often left waiting, wondering how your message was received or if it was seen at all. This delay can lead to endless replays of what you said, how it might have come across, and whether you made a misstep. The result is a loop of anxiety that keeps you second-guessing yourself long after you've hit send. It's important to recognize that much of this anxiety is rooted in assumptions rather than reality. Just as in person, people online are often wrapped up in their own worlds, their own concerns, and their own anxieties. They're not dissecting your every word or holding on to every misstep. Understanding this can help you approach online interactions with a bit more grace for yourself, allowing you to participate without the constant fear of judgment. Managing social media. Setting boundaries for healthy engagement. Social media can be a double-edged sword for those with social anxiety. On one hand, it offers a way to connect, share, and stay in touch with people from all corners of your life. On the other, it can feel like a never-ending performance with every post, comment, and like carrying the weight of social expectations. The curated nature of social media often presents an unrealistic standard of how others live, leading to comparisons that can heighten feelings of inadequacy and anxiety. To manage social media in a way that supports your mental health, it's essential to set boundaries. Start by curating your feed. Follow accounts that inspire, uplift, or genuinely interest you, and don't hesitate to mute or unfollow those that trigger negative feelings. You have control over what you consume, and creating a positive digital environment can significantly reduce the anxiety that comes from constant comparison. Be mindful of how much time you spend scrolling. It's easy to lose hours passively consuming content, but this often leaves you feeling disconnected and overwhelmed. Set specific times for social media use, and take breaks when you notice it's starting to impact your mood. Social media is a tool, not a measure of your worth, and the more intentional you are with your engagement, the more balanced your relationship with it will become. When it comes to posting, focus on authenticity over perfection. It's tempting to craft posts that portray an idealized version of your life, but this often adds to the pressure of maintaining a facade. Share what feels genuine to you without worrying about how it will be perceived. The more you embrace your true self online, the more you'll attract connections that resonate with who you really are, rather than who you think you should be. Responding to comments or messages can also be a source of anxiety, especially if you feel pressured to reply immediately or craft the perfect response. Give yourself permission to take your time. Not every message requires an immediate reply, and it's okay to pause, reflect, and respond when you feel ready. Remember, you're not obligated to engage on anyone else's timeline but your own. Navigating video calls. Facing the virtual spotlight. Video calls have become a staple of modern communication, whether for work, socializing, or virtual events. While convenient, they can also trigger a unique form of social anxiety. The experience of seeing yourself on screen, the pressure to maintain eye contact with a camera, and the awkwardness of talking to a grid of faces can make even the simplest interactions feel stilted and unnatural. To manage video call anxiety, start by setting up a comfortable environment. Choose a spot with good lighting, minimal distractions, and a setup that allows you to feel at ease. Being in a familiar and comfortable space can help reduce the feeling of being on display. If seeing your own face is distracting or anxiety-inducing, consider turning off the self-view feature. This simple adjustment can make a significant difference, allowing you to focus on the conversation rather than on how you appear. Another helpful strategy is to prepare ahead of time, especially for work-related calls or virtual meetings. Have any necessary notes, talking points, or materials ready so that you feel equipped and organized. The more prepared you are, the less you'll feel flustered in the moment. Remember, it's okay to take notes during the call, jot down questions, or even ask for a moment to gather your thoughts if you need to respond. When engaging in video calls, try to maintain a relaxed, natural posture. You don't need to sit rigidly or overperform eye contact. Treat the screen like a window into a conversation, not a stage. If your mind goes blank or you feel anxious, take a breath and allow yourself a moment to recalibrate. Virtual communication is still communication, and it's okay to have pauses, missteps, or moments of silence. Socializing via video calls can also feel challenging, especially when it involves larger groups or unfamiliar faces. If joining a virtual social event feels overwhelming, set small, manageable goals for yourself. Aim to stay for a set amount of time or to participate in one group activity or discussion. If you need to step away or take a break, it's perfectly acceptable to mute your mic or turn off your camera momentarily. You have the flexibility to control your level of engagement, and that's a powerful tool for managing anxiety. Handling negative online interactions. Reclaiming your digital space. Negative interactions online, such as critical comments, disagreements, or misunderstandings, can trigger intense feelings of anxiety. The impersonal nature of digital communication can sometimes lead to misinterpretations, escalating what might have been a minor issue into a source of stress. When faced with negative feedback, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt, questioning your actions and replaying the interaction in your mind. The first step in handling negative online interactions is to take a step back. Resist the urge to respond immediately, especially if you're feeling emotional or defensive. Give yourself time to process and decide whether a response is warranted. Not every comment needs to be addressed, and sometimes the most powerful action is to simply let it go. Your mental well-being is more important than engaging in a fruitless back and forth. If you choose to respond, keep it calm and measured. Focus on clarifying misunderstandings or sharing your perspective without getting drawn into personal attacks or heated exchanges. Online communication often lacks the nuance of face-to-face interactions, so strive for clarity and kindness, even when addressing conflict. And remember, it's okay to disengage if the conversation isn't productive. Setting boundaries, even in the digital world, is a form of self-care. Blocking or muting individuals who consistently bring negativity into your digital space is another valid option. Your online environment should feel safe, supportive, and aligned with your values. You're not obligated to tolerate hostility, and taking control of who has access to your digital presence is a powerful way to reclaim your sense of peace. Embracing digital communities, finding connection without the pressure. The internet offers a vast array of digital communities, from interest-based forums to support groups, where you can connect with others who share similar passions or experiences. For those with social anxiety, these spaces can provide a sense of belonging without the immediacy of in-person interactions. Whether it's joining a book club on Goodreads, participating in a mental health forum, or connecting with fellow hobbyists on Reddit, digital communities allow you to engage at your own pace. One of the benefits of online communities is the ability to choose how much or how little you participate. You can start by reading others' posts, gradually liking or commenting when you feel comfortable, and eventually contributing your own content if you're inspired to do so. There's no pressure to engage constantly. You can dip in and out as you please, finding the level of interaction that feels right for you. These communities also offer a valuable reminder that you're not alone in your experiences. Seeing others share their own struggles, triumphs, and day-to-day moments can be incredibly validating, reducing the sense of isolation that social anxiety often brings. You're part of a broader network of individuals navigating similar challenges, and that connection, even when virtual, can be a source of strength. Digital communities also offer a space to practice social skills in a low-pressure environment. Engaging in discussions, offering support, or even asking questions can help you build confidence that translates into your offline interactions. The skills you develop online, communicating clearly, managing different perspectives, and expressing yourself authentically, are valuable assets that extend beyond the screen. Reflecting on your digital presence, aligning your online life with your values. It's easy to get swept up in the fast-paced nature of the digital world, but taking the time to reflect on your online presence can be a grounding exercise. Consider how you're showing up in the virtual space. Are you engaging in ways that feel authentic and aligned with your values, or are you caught in patterns of comparison, validation seeking, or avoidance? There's no right or wrong way to navigate the digital realm, but being mindful of how it affects your mental and emotional well-being is essential. If you find that certain platforms or interactions consistently leave you feeling anxious, disconnected, or drained, it might be time to reassess your relationship with them. You have the power to curate your digital experience in a way that supports your mental health, fosters positive connections and reflects who you truly are. This might mean reducing your time on certain apps, changing your approach to online interactions, or even taking a digital detox to reset your relationship with technology. At the end of the day, your digital life is an extension of your real life. It's a tool that can enhance your connections, provide support, and open doors to new opportunities, but it doesn't define you. By setting boundaries, embracing authenticity, and managing your anxiety with intention, you can create an online presence that feels empowering rather than overwhelming. Wrapping up. Navigating the digital world with confidence. The digital world, with all its complexities, can be a challenging landscape to navigate when you have social anxiety. But it's also a space rich with opportunities for connection, learning, and self-expression. By approaching your online interactions with intention, setting boundaries that protect your well-being, and embracing your true self, you can turn the digital realm into a place of growth rather than a source of stress. Remember, you have the power to shape your online experience. You're not obligated to engage in ways that feel uncomfortable or to meet the expectations of a digital audience. You're free to show up as you are, flaws, quirks, and all, and to find joy in the connections you make along the way. Keep taking those small steps, both on and offline, knowing that each one brings you closer to a more confident, connected version of yourself. The digital world isn't just a screen. It's a space where your voice can be heard, where your presence matters, and where your journey is just as valid as anyone else's. Embrace it, manage it, and let it be a part of your path toward overcoming social anxiety, one click at a time. Chapter 10: Handling Setbacks, Resilience and Coping Strategies. The journey of overcoming social anxiety is rarely a straight line. It's filled with ups and downs, moments of progress, and inevitable setbacks. There will be days when you feel on top of the world, confident, connected, and capable, and then there will be days when anxiety seems to tighten its grip, pulling you back into familiar fears and doubts. These setbacks can feel disheartening, as if all your hard work has unraveled in an instant. But setbacks are not failures. They are a natural part of any growth process. They offer valuable lessons, test your resilience, and ultimately strengthen your resolve to keep moving forward. In this chapter, we'll explore how to handle setbacks with grace, compassion, and a mindset geared toward growth. We'll look at strategies for managing the emotional fallout of setbacks, reframing them as opportunities for learning, and developing coping mechanisms that help you bounce back stronger. Resilience isn't about never falling down. It's about rising each time you do, with a deeper understanding of yourself and a renewed commitment to your journey. The emotional impact of setbacks. Understanding the feelings that arise. Setbacks often stir up a range of difficult emotions: frustration, self-doubt, disappointment, and even shame. When anxiety resurfaces or a social interaction doesn't go as planned, it's easy to feel like you've taken 10 steps back. You might start questioning your progress, doubting your abilities, or feeling as though you're stuck in a loop you can't escape. These emotions are valid, and acknowledging them is the first step toward moving past them. It's important to recognize that setbacks are not a reflection of your worth or a sign that you're failing. They are simply part of the human experience, especially when you're challenging deeply ingrained patterns like social anxiety. Everyone, no matter how confident they appear, faces moments of insecurity and struggle. The difference lies not in avoiding these moments but in how you respond to them. When a setback occurs, give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling without judgment. It's okay to be upset, to feel discouraged, or to need a moment to process the experience. Allowing yourself to sit with these emotions, rather than pushing them away or berating yourself for having them, creates space for healing. You're not obligated to feel positive all the time. You're simply asked to be kind to yourself as you navigate the complexities of your emotions. Reframing setbacks, seeing them as part of the process. One of the most powerful ways to handle setbacks is to reframe them as a normal, even necessary part of the growth process. Setbacks are not roadblocks. They are stepping stones that provide you with invaluable insights. They reveal the areas where you still need to grow, highlight patterns that may be holding you back, and offer a chance to refine your strategies. When you shift your perspective from seeing setbacks as failures to viewing them as learning opportunities, you reclaim your power. Think of your journey as a spiral rather than a straight line. You might circle back to familiar challenges, but each time you do, you're approaching them with more experience, more tools, and a deeper understanding of yourself. Setbacks are not signs that you're back at square one. They are moments of revisiting old territory with a fresh perspective. This spiral of growth allows you to deepen your resilience and sharpen your skills, turning each stumble into a chance to stand taller. Reflecting on a setback with curiosity rather than criticism can help you uncover the lessons hidden within it. Ask yourself what triggered the anxiety, what thoughts or behaviors contributed to the experience, and what you might do differently next time. This reflection isn't about assigning blame or finding fault. It's about gaining clarity and using that insight to inform your next steps. The more you can view setbacks as teachers rather than obstacles, the more empowered you become to continue your journey with renewed determination. Developing coping strategies, tools for navigating difficult moments. Having a toolkit of coping strategies can make all the difference when you're dealing with setbacks. These strategies are your safety net, providing you with concrete actions you can take to manage your anxiety and regain your balance. Coping strategies are not about erasing anxiety but about creating space to breathe, regroup, and approach challenges with a clearer mind. Grounding techniques are particularly helpful when anxiety feels overwhelming. Focusing on your breath, engaging your senses, or using simple physical movements like stretching can help bring you back to the present moment. These actions serve as a mental reset, breaking the cycle of anxious thoughts and reconnecting you with your body. The goal is not to banish anxiety entirely but to reduce its intensity, allowing you to think and act with greater calm. Positive self-talk is another crucial coping mechanism. When a setback occurs, the inner critic often kicks into high gear, bombarding you with negative self-assessments and what-if scenarios. Combating this internal dialogue with affirmations or compassionate self-reminders can help counteract the spiral of self-doubt. Phrases like, "I'm learning, this is temporary," or, "I've faced challenges before and I can face this too," can act as anchors, grounding you in a more balanced mindset. Connecting with others can also be a powerful way to cope with setbacks. Sharing your experience with a trusted friend, therapist, or support group can provide validation, reduce feelings of isolation, and offer new perspectives. Sometimes, simply hearing someone else say, "I've been there too," can make a world of difference. You're not alone in your struggles, and reaching out can remind you that setbacks are a shared human experience, not a personal failing. Allow yourself to take breaks when needed. It's okay to step back, rest, and recharge without feeling like you're abandoning your progress. Pushing through anxiety when you're depleted can often lead to more setbacks, so listen to your body and mind. Rest is a crucial part of resilience, and taking time to care for yourself doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're giving yourself the resources you need to keep going. Practicing self-compassion. Being gentle with yourself in difficult times. Self-compassion is one of the most powerful tools you can cultivate on your journey to overcoming social anxiety. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that you would offer to a friend. When setbacks occur, the instinct may be to criticize yourself harshly, to replay the situation in your mind, and to dwell on what you should have done differently. But this self-criticism only deepens the pain of the setback and makes it harder to move forward. Practicing self-compassion means acknowledging that you're doing your best, even when things don't go perfectly. It's about recognizing that setbacks are part of the human condition, not a personal indictment of your worth. When you speak to yourself with gentleness, saying things like, "This is hard but I'm still trying," or, "It's okay to struggle, I'm learning," you create a supportive inner environment that fosters resilience. Self-compassion also involves giving yourself permission to make mistakes. You're not on a quest for perfection. You're on a journey of growth, which means there will be bumps along the way. Allow yourself to be imperfect, to have moments of doubt, and to make missteps. These experiences don't define you, they're simply part of the path you're walking. One practice that can help cultivate self-compassion is writing a letter to yourself from the perspective of a kind friend. In this letter, offer words of encouragement, understanding, and support. Acknowledge the difficulty of what you're facing and affirm your commitment to keep going. Reading this letter during times of setback can serve as a powerful reminder that you're worthy of kindness, even when things feel tough. Building resilience, bouncing back and moving forward. Resilience isn't about never feeling anxiety again. It's about developing the ability to bounce back from setbacks with a renewed sense of purpose. Each time you encounter a setback and find a way through it, you're building resilience. You're proving to yourself that anxiety, no matter how strong, doesn't have the final say. Your strength, determination, and willingness to keep trying are the true measures of your progress. One of the keys to building resilience is maintaining perspective. Setbacks are moments in time, not permanent states of being. They don't erase the progress you've made, nor do they define your future. When you encounter a difficult moment, remind yourself that it's just that, a moment. It will pass, and when it does, you'll still have all the growth, learning, and courage you've gained along the way. Setting small, manageable goals can also help rebuild confidence after a setback. Rather than trying to tackle everything at once, focus on one step at a time. Each small success reinforces your resilience and helps you regain momentum. Celebrate these victories, no matter how minor they may seem. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a testament to your resilience. Keeping a resilience journal can be a valuable tool for tracking your progress. Write down your setbacks, how you handled them, and what you learned from each experience. Document your coping strategies, moments of strength, and the insights you gained along the way. This journal becomes a living record of your journey, filled with evidence of your ability to overcome challenges. When future setbacks occur, you can look back on these pages and see just how far you've come. Embracing the journey, setbacks as stepping stones to growth. Setbacks are not the end of your journey, they are part of the process that shapes you into a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. Each time you face a challenge and rise to meet it, you're reinforcing the belief that you can handle whatever comes your way. The road may be uneven, but it's also full of potential for learning, growth, and self-discovery. As you continue to navigate the complexities of social anxiety, remember that resilience isn't about being unbreakable, it's about being flexible. It's about bending without breaking, adapting to change, and finding new ways to move forward when old patterns no longer serve you. Your journey is uniquely yours, marked by your courage, your setbacks, and the countless small victories that make up your progress. Keep taking those steps no matter how small. Keep showing up even when it's hard. And most importantly, keep believing in your ability to grow, adapt, and thrive. Setbacks are not setbacks at all, they are stepping stones that carry you toward a brighter, more confident future. Conclusion: reflecting on progress and planning for the future. Reaching the end of this book is not the end of your journey with social anxiety, it's a significant milestone in an ongoing process of growth, understanding, and self-compassion. As you've moved through each chapter, you've been equipped with practical tools, new perspectives, and encouragement to face your fears, take small steps, and embrace the moments of progress, however subtle they may seem. This journey has not been about eliminating anxiety altogether but about learning to live with it, to manage it, and to build a life that isn't limited by fear. This concluding chapter is an invitation to reflect on how far you've come, to recognize the courage it takes to confront your anxiety, and to plan for the next steps in your ongoing path toward a more confident and connected self. Social anxiety doesn't have to define you or dictate your choices. It's just one part of your experience, and you have the power to shape how it influences your life. Let's take a moment to acknowledge your achievements, explore how to maintain your progress, and set your intentions for the future. Reflecting on your journey, acknowledging your progress. It's easy to get caught up in what still feels challenging and to overlook the strides you've made. Reflection is a powerful tool that allows you to pause, take stock, and appreciate your progress. Consider where you were when you first started this journey. What were your biggest fears? Which situations felt impossible to handle? Now think about the steps you've taken, the moments of courage that got you through tough interactions, and the times when you pushed back against your anxiety, even if just a little. Reflection isn't about highlighting perfection. It's about recognizing growth. Perhaps you found yourself speaking up in a meeting when you'd usually stay silent, or maybe you attended a social event even though you were tempted to cancel. These moments are significant, and each one represents a victory over the patterns of avoidance that anxiety often encourages. You've shown up for yourself time and time again, and that's something to be proud of. As you reflect, it's also important to acknowledge the emotional work you've done. Managing social anxiety isn't just about outward actions, it's about the inner shifts, challenging negative thoughts, being kinder to yourself, and choosing to keep going even when it's hard. These internal victories are just as valuable as any external accomplishment, and they are the foundation of the resilience you've been building. Maintaining your progress, strategies for ongoing growth. Now that you've laid a solid foundation, the question becomes, how do you maintain your progress? The key is to keep practicing even when anxiety rears its head. Progress with social anxiety is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's okay. What matters is that you continue to engage with the strategies that have worked for you, adapting and refining them as needed. Consistency is crucial. The more you expose yourself to the situations that trigger your anxiety, the more desensitized you become to the fear they provoke. This doesn't mean forcing yourself into overwhelming scenarios but rather continuing to take small, manageable steps that gradually expand your comfort zone. Whether it's making a point to chat with a colleague, attending a new class, or participating in a community group, these ongoing exposures reinforce the message that you are capable and that anxiety, while present, doesn't have to dictate your actions. Setting intentions for how you want to continue growing can also be motivating. Think about areas where you'd like to see more progress. Is it being more assertive in social settings? Feeling less self-conscious during conversations? Building deeper connections with others? By identifying your goals, you can create a sense of direction and purpose in your ongoing efforts, reminding yourself that each small step is moving you closer to where you want to be. Self-care remains an essential part of maintaining progress. Anxiety can be draining, and it's easy to become worn out if you're constantly pushing yourself without allowing for rest. Make space for activities that recharge you, whether it's spending time in nature, reading, practicing mindfulness, or simply taking a quiet moment for yourself. Taking care of your mental and emotional well-being ensures that you have the energy and resilience to keep engaging with the challenges that come your way. Embracing uncertainty, the art of letting go. One of the greatest sources of anxiety is the fear of the unknown. Wondering how a conversation will go, worrying about others' perceptions, or anticipating social situations that feel unpredictable. But part of overcoming social anxiety involves embracing this uncertainty rather than trying to control it. Life is full of unknowns, and the reality is that not every interaction will go smoothly, not every response will be positive, and not every moment will be comfortable. This is not a reflection of your worth but simply the nature of human connection. Letting go of the need for certainty means allowing yourself to show up imperfectly, to take risks without guarantees, and to be okay with whatever happens next. This doesn't mean you won't feel anxious, but it does mean you can move forward despite that anxiety, trusting that you can handle whatever comes. Embracing uncertainty is a form of liberation. It frees you from the constant pressure to be perfect and opens you up to the richness of real, unscripted life. Cultivating a mindset of flexibility is key. Instead of striving for flawless interactions, aim for genuine ones. Allow space for mistakes, for awkward pauses, and for the occasional misstep. These moments are not failures. They are the texture of real, authentic communication. When you let go of rigid expectations and embrace the messiness of being human, you give yourself the grace to connect in a way that feels honest and fulfilling. Planning for the future. Setting intentions for continued growth. As you look toward the future, it's helpful to set intentions rather than rigid goals. Intentions are about direction, not destination. They guide you without the pressure of specific outcomes. Consider what kind of social life you want to build. Do you want to feel more at ease in group settings? Develop deeper friendships? Speak up more in professional environments? Setting these intentions gives you a sense of purpose and helps you stay focused on what matters most to you. Think about the values that guide your social interactions. Are you seeking connection, authenticity, or simply a sense of comfort in your own skin? Let these values shape the way you approach social situations. When you align your actions with your values, you're not just trying to manage anxiety, you're actively creating the kind of social experiences that enrich your life. It's also important to recognize that this journey is not one you have to navigate alone. Seeking support, whether through therapy, support groups, or trusted friends, can provide ongoing encouragement and guidance. There's no shame in asking for help or in acknowledging that social anxiety is a challenge that benefits from collective support. You are not alone in this, and reaching out to others can deepen your resilience and sense of community. As you continue to grow, remember that progress is not always visible in the moment. It's the accumulation of countless small actions, each one building on the last, that leads to lasting change. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate the victories, however minor they may seem, and don't let setbacks discourage you. They are simply reminders that you are still learning, still evolving, and still moving forward. Final thoughts. Embracing your journey with compassion. Social anxiety may always be a part of your life, but it doesn't have to define it. You've taken the time to understand your anxiety, to challenge it, and to build a relationship with it that empowers you rather than limits you. This journey requires immense courage, and every step you've taken, every challenge faced, every conversation started, every fear confronted, is a testament to your strength. Embrace your journey with compassion. Be gentle with yourself on the hard days, and celebrate the moments of lightness and connection that come your way. Your progress is real and it is meaningful, even if it doesn't always feel linear. Each time you choose to engage rather than avoid, to speak rather than stay silent, and to show up as your authentic self, you are rewriting the narrative of your life. Keep moving forward with hope, patience, and a deep belief in your capacity to grow. The world is filled with opportunities for connection, for joy, and for discovery, and you are deserving of every bit of it. Continue to take small steps, to reach out, and to trust in the process. Your journey is ongoing, and every day is a chance to build a more confident, connected version of yourself. Thank you for committing to this path. Your courage is inspiring, and your story is still unfolding in the most beautiful ways. Keep going. The best is yet to come.